What's up, guys? This is Kaz with Elevateyourcraft, and welcome to another box opening for Ultra Prism. Decided to switch it up. The last couple were of the Guardians Rising set, but, we're on to Ultra Prism now, and I gotta say I really dig this set. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking for at the moment. I mean, I've been playing a lot of Glaceon GX variants online, so I managed to get my hands on a few of those already. Some full art Cynthias would be really cool, but yeah, at this point, not looking for anything in particular, other than some nice. Maybe some full arts or even the rainbow rares, that kind of thing, that you hope to pull from a booster box opening. But anyway, let's begin. And it is the first pack. So, like I said, I've been playing a fair amount online of the Glaceon GX variants. Having a lot of fun with it. I gotta say, I really want to play a Glaceon GX variant for competitively, but we'll see. That Oranguru is kind of cool. That seems to have been have an interesting role, avoiding mill and that kind of thing. Just putting 3 cards from your discard pile in your deck or back in your deck is just really strong. So a cool card. Happy to find that one, and it's the regular art too, no hollow, no nothing, so that's the one I'll be using. But on to the second one, and I've mostly actually been trying the Glaceon GX Alolan Ninetales combination, and I've always loved Ninetales, Alolan Ninetales, just such a cool card, and I really enjoy using it. It does take a fair bit to power it up. I mean, even with aqua patches, it does hit some nice numbers, though I gotta say. I mean, with the choice band, you're doing 190, so that's relevant for, say, Duskmane Necrozma, Buzzwole, things like that, which is nice. But the idea these days seems to be fewer energy attachments, efficiency, that kind of thing. So whether I'm actually gonna play Ninetales seriously, I don't know yet. I mean, I've actually been doing pretty well with it online. The Glaceon is such a good starter. I mean, of course, against the Zoroark GX decks, if you can get that first turn energy evolution and then get a Glaceon GX up and running, it's really, really nice. So, the partnership between Ninetales and Glaceon is pretty cool, but I'm thinking that I might try some sort of Glaceon GX Garbodor combination. The ability lock on all abilities, not just the EX and GX, is really, really nice, and that applies so well in the current meta. You're just shutting off so many abilities. That, which is great, because the Glaceon GX, of course, is just shutting off EX and GX, where if you can cover all other abilities too, which is relevant in things like Vikabulu, Garchomp with the Lucario combination, even Duskmane Necrozma, shutting off all of those abilities as opposed to the EX and GX only with Glaceon is pretty nice, and it's kind of interesting, these combinations with Garbodor at the moment. They're kind of nuts, and you're seeing it everywhere, but that's for a reason. And there's a Cynthia, which is always nice. I did manage to get my hands on 4 of them so far, but really common card now, so definitely doesn't hurt having more of them. Nothing shiny so far, so hopefully we can get something coming up. The Duskmane Necrozma, that's an interesting card too. I've always had a little bit of a tough time. I mean, I guess not always, but since the card was released anyway, getting behind the Duskmane Necrozma deck that you see. I mean, it could be that it just hasn't been optimized enough yet. Oh, the Fairy Lele, very cool. It just hasn't been optimized yet. There are some different lists popping up out there, and it takes a bit of time to figure out exactly what the best list is. How we can optimize the deck, and even Vikabulu went through something like that. Went through some different iterations. It was actually one of the first decks that I played competitively. The actual first deck I made was a Toxapex deck, which I actually did mention in a previous video. But soon I was thinking, okay, what is a fairly simple concept? What can I do that, isn't too complex to play, has a linear path, and Vikabulu just fit that description nicely. Didn't want to, I don't want to say not think too much at first, but, being fairly new to the game, even greener at that time. I mean, even now I'm about 7 months in, but this was only, a couple months maybe that I'd started playing the game, and then to pick up Vikabulu was, I thought, a good path, and it was a good start. And the deck is still around, and it's a bit different from the decks that we saw at that point. So maybe that's the case for Duskmane, where it's just everyone's trying it out, seeing what fits, what's best, and then we'll find the best iteration soon enough. So Weavile, that is a cool card. Seeing that fairly recently with the Zoroark. GX is a partner. Mentioned the abilities before. They're pretty prevalent, and that's a good example. I mean, we're obviously going to try and get the Magnezone out, but there's still another ability there. A lot of Pokemon are using abilities right now, so people's benches are littered with them. That Weavile is coming up pretty big and hitting some great numbers, which is cool to see. It's always neat to see different cards come in and maybe something that you don't expect. So keeps things interesting, I suppose. But on to the next one. So let's see. What are we at now? I did manage to get a Cyrus. I did include that in the... Oh, there's a Pal Pad. That's a useful card. I have included Cyrus in my Glaceon GX Alolan Ninetales GX list, and I don't really know what I'm going to do, if I'm going to keep it in there. It has come in clutch a couple times, I got to say, and it's really nice when it does, but I kind of found that I always wanted to use another supporter instead, whether it was a draw supporter. I'm down to a few cards and I have a Cyrus in my hand. I'm thinking, well, if I use the Cyrus, great, I'll slow them down, but then I don't really have any follow-up. And if I'm not in a really good board state at that point, I almost feel like I would rather just use a draw supporter. So when I've found the Cyrus come in most useful is when I'm ahead. And, maybe even, but slightly ahead. I've got energies on the field. I'm in a really good position. I've got a primary attacker. I've got a backup attacker. And then I just hit them with the Cyrus. And not only does it slow them down, but if I'm gonna take a knockout on that turn, it can really cripple the opponent. So I found that it's great when you're ahead to just really take that knockout and kind of take the lead in just such a dominant fashion. Okay, and we got a full art Looker, and I like this card a lot. I think the full art is just fantastic. The regular art, he looks very suspicious, and I think that's obviously the point of the card. But I think the full art of this just looks so cool, and I'm happy to have pulled it. I played sort of a stall mill deck that used the new Oranguru we see there the other day, and it took advantage of Looker and Looker's Whistle, or Looker Whistle, whichever it is, and use that resource management attack to kind of recycle and just wipe any damage off of the Pokemon that they had. And it seemed like a really interesting idea. Luckily enough, I was able to win the match, and it's actually on the YouTube page. So I recommend checking it out. It was a great match. I was playing, I believe, Buzzwole Garb, if I'm not mistaken. But, that weakness, Orangaru's weakness to fighting really came in. I was able to power up a Zygarde and take some critical knockouts on their Orangaru and pulled it out in the end. So it was a really cool matchup, and it was the first time I'd ever played that matchup. So it was pretty neat. It was a good learning experience. So I recommend you check that out. Again, it's on the YouTube channel, Elevate Your Craft, all one word. And we got a reverse hollow mount coronet. Card being used, of course, in the Duskmane Necrozma decks. All right, which I haven't tried out at all. I was a little worried about it, I guess, with the Alolan Ninetales, the Glaceon GX, a deck I mentioned earlier. But I'm thinking, well, if you're going against that deck, it's one-shotting anything anyway. So the weakness isn't that big of a concern. But it's the toolbox metal that makes me a little nervous, having a deck like that with just pure weakness to metal. Hello, Lunala. Okay, very cool. The first Prism card of the box opening. But having that complete weakness to metal is a little worrisome, I guess, but metal doesn't seem to be too prominent outside of the Duskmane Necrozma. And even then, I think it's still running into some consistency issues. So until the ideal iteration of that deck is found, maybe we won't see it. But the toolbox, maybe it's a Silvally metal toolbox that we've seen in the past. Maybe that'll become more prominent, and that'll be a bigger concern for the Alolan Ninetales. It's actually a Glaceon GX Alolan Ninetales backup. I do a 4 EV3 Glaceon GX and another Mount Coronet, and a 3 Alolan Vulpix to Alolan Ninetales GX lineup. I found I was running 3 Vulpix, 3 Alolan Ninetales at first, and that was just too much. You want the Glaceon, I think, to do work with the spread damage, and then you kind of have Alolan Ninetales come in to take the knockouts on those 210 Pokemon, say like Golisopod, GX, or Zoroark, and that type of thing, with the Blizzard Edge attack. So I cut the line. Okay, we have a Dialga GX. So definitely seen this one online a bit as well in those aforementioned Duskmane Necrozma decks. Have seen some Timeless GX attacks, which is just hilarious to see. I'm still somewhat new to the game, but I mean, even still, just seeing that, you're thinking, wow, that's such an interesting GX attack. I mean, especially if it's turns and you're able to just steal a final turn from your opponent, that can be pretty interesting. So where are we at now? We are at one Dialga GX, the Lunala Prism, the Full Art Looker, which is pretty cool, and then the Weavile. We've got little Orangaru and Cynthia hanging out there as well. And we're coming up on halfway through the box, so let's see what we got here. All right. And we got a hollow, a reverse, or I guess a hollow unit energy, and the Lucario. Cool. And that brings up a deck that I haven't tried at all. I've played it, I'd say a fair bit. The Garchomp deck, which was obviously made to work with Garchomp, the Lucario. It seems like it's pretty fun. I'd say with the aggressive decks like Buzzwole, which is the majority of when I actually played against it, it was really tough to get set up, which it's a stage 2 deck. Of course, it may run into some consistency issues, but I just found that I was able to take out the basic Pokemon, not really let it evolve, and then if it's the the Buzzwole GX Garbodor variant, you're also locking up the abilities of the Gibble and the Lucario, so it just really hurts that deck. And a lot of the time when I did play it, it just had a tough time getting set up, and then eventually, you're way too far behind, and can't do much about it. So I'm not sure if I'll try that one. Don't tend to play Stage 2 decks to begin with. I really like kind of those, Stage 1, I guess, at the max, but like those basic Pokemon, aggressive, and just really getting damage out there and spread, that kind of thing is what I seem to enjoy most. And we have the Fan Rotom. I think that was actually, oh no, I could be mistaken. I don't know that that was in a deck in Collinsville or anything like that. It might have just been thrown around as an idea, but it doesn't look like there's too much in this pack. Good old Piplup, the 70 HP one, which most, if not all, are using for the Empoleon decks. Kind of makes sense, kind of like the Wimpod with the 70, which makes it useful in taking damage from Buzzwole or even Greninja Break's ability. That extra 10 HP can come in pretty important sometimes. Okay, so what do we got here? Alolan Sandslash and a Palpad. Awesome. Seeing that in some decks and not seeing it as well. It seems to be a card that some people are choosing to play. Others don't really see it as necessary. I think if your supporter line is a bit thinner, with Cynthia, some are running maybe one less Guzma or N, whether they're running 2 Ns, something like that. Maybe then it's pretty useful to have that Palpad in order to bring back that endgame Guzma, something like that. This Passimian, I've played the Passimian deck online a few times, and the damage that it can come up with sometimes is just crazy. I feel like, though, if you have a deck that can minimize the bench space on your opponent that's playing Passimian, it can really hurt. Same with the Alolan Doug Trio in that deck. Something like a Parallel City can really hurt that deck, or something maybe even like a Cyrus. The Cyrus, though, I've found that, it does go back into their deck. So if your opponent has the ability to easily get basic Pokemon back out, then the Cyrus can almost feel a little underwhelming. But it should slow them down nonetheless. Got some memories here. And that's an interesting idea, too. I do like Silvally a lot, the GX. And the memories, doing something like a Zoroark Silvally with some memories that are countering some relevant Pokemon seems pretty cool. You have the Rebel GX attack, which is, I guess, similar in essence to Dangerous Rogue from Lycanroc GX. So I do like that idea. I did play a Silvally Metal Toolbox deck a little while back, which I had fun playing. Along the lines of, I think it was back in maybe the fall, where everyone was building against Guardy, essentially the decks with Registeel, with Celesteela, even Scizor, EX, things like that, just to kind of really make it tough for Gardevoir, and how prevalent it was at that time. And the Unit Energy is an interesting card, too. I think it may have a place in some decks, especially maybe the Metal Psychic. If you're playing some sort of Metal Pokemon in combination with Garbodor and including the Trashalanche variant, that could be pretty useful. Did see it, I believe, in Collinsville as well. I think it was maybe Aaron Tarbell that played it with his, I think it was some sort of Drampa, maybe Garbodor type deck. So it looks like it's pretty unique and may have some use in competitive play. Rampardos. And another Rotom. Okay. So onward and upward. Another Piplup there. so far, not looking too intense, but I do see something there. It could be a Prism card. And it is a Solgaleo Prism. I would think the Prism that I've seen most out there. It's a really, really good card. Great in the Duskmane Necrozma deck that I talked about a little bit earlier. Just such a cool card. The 160 HP, Radiant Star attack. Getting those energies out of your discard pile onto your benched Pokemon is great. Or, onto itself to power up that Corona Impact, which is a great amount of damage. So very happy to get that one. I actually don't have one at the moment, so definitely a great find. So, all right, we're looking a little better here. And on to the next one. Okay, Chimchar. I did try the Infernape. I actually included Turtonator, kind of Infernape, Entei GX deck in order to take advantage of that burn, that additional 60 damage, I believe it is. And it was kiboshed pretty quickly. Just lacked consistency. Getting up a stage 2 is always a little more difficult. And the Entei, that double energy attach for a single attack, does make things a little bit slower. I feel like everything has to go absolutely perfectly with that deck in order to make it work, but who knows? That was kind of an initial draft, so maybe there is room for those cards out there, but not quite sure. I think it's a little too inconsistent. Okay. And there he is. Okay, so the Duskmane Necrozma GX. So what we've been talking about, and it's the Rainbow Rare, which is a very, very nice card. And put him beside the Solgaleo Prism. How it fits so well. Really good find there. Happy to find that. I actually don't have any Duskmane Necrozma GXs, so happy to add it to my collection. So we're actually looking pretty good right now. I wouldn't mind a Full Art Cynthia. That would be a great find, but who knows? We'll see. Don't imagine that's a very common card. And if you found one, lucky you. Oh, there's that Looker Whistle. And the Garchomp that we talked about earlier. Another thing with that Garchomp deck is it's the 2 energy attachments. You got to get that fighting and the double colorless on there. So it just seems pretty vulnerable. But, maybe we're just haven't found the right setup, the right list for it quite yet. So here we are, and we're looking at what? About 9 packs left. We did take out the code cards, so Electivire and a Morotum and a Unit Energy. Okay, and there's the regular Looker. Okay, put that there. Do like the, not really related to, I guess, Ultra Prism, maybe other than the Cynthias, but the Buzzwole Garb deck, which I did mention a little bit earlier. Really great list, or great showing of the list for Andrew Mahone and I believe Natalie Champay. So a really fun deck. I've played it a bit online to some success and fits my style too, that really early aggression, very straightforward deck, not a lot of strands to playing it. Simple strategy, but super, super effective, and that ability lock at the moment is just great. So I think that's one that I will continue to test. Along with Glaceon, I'm not quite sure what iteration I'd like to play, whether it's maybe Glaceon Zoroark or Glaceon on its own, whether it's just the quad Glaceon, and then you kind of include some disruption in there, or maybe Glaceon Garbodor. That's an idea. So we'll see. And the Alolan Doug Trio, mention that one. I think I've played it once in total online, and I was able to take it out fairly handily. I mean, at that time I was playing Buzzwole Lycanroc and had a fair amount of experience on that deck, but I mean, I did have the Parallel City at the time, and was just getting those early knockouts on the Alolan Diglets and the Alolan Doug Trio. That's 60 HP. Can be a little rough to work with. So I took it fairly handily, which was not surprising. But other than that, I haven't seen it at all, which I don't think is quite surprising, but we'll see. Okay. So I saw something shiny there. And a Palkia GX. A card that seems a little underwhelming at the moment. I mean, I think it might be more relevant if it were a water type. Then you can get those aqua patches rolling and maybe take advantage of that hydro pressure attack or the zero vanish, because the GX attack seems pretty good. I mean, maybe a little less effective at this point in the meta, just because it seems to be about minimal energy attachments, but at the same time, that means that there's not a lot of energy in the deck. So if you're able to maybe shuffle the energy in the deck and then shut off trade or something like that with a Glaceon, for instance, which is why it would be nice if it were a water type. That way you get rid of their energy and they're not able to trade. Then I could see it being pretty effective. But the Palkia GX being a dragon type, I don't really think is ideal. And same with the Dialga GX. Maybe if that's going to be a metal type down the line, that would be a little bit better. And I think it even applies to the Garchomp. I think they are releasing a new Garchomp as a fighting type Pokemon, but we'll see. So that the Palkia GX, yeah, I mean, I could see it being used if it were a water type. So it'd be interesting if they do release it as that. Coming up on the last few packs here. So far, not too bad of a haul. That full art, the rainbow full art Duskmane Necrozma is pretty nice. And let's see what we get here. Okay, a Super Boost Energy Prism and a Silvally GX. Very nice. I do happen to have the other art in Crimson Invasion, but I actually online I only have one of these, so maybe I can pick up a couple more of this particular art. I think I do like it better than the Crimson Invasion Silvally GX, but that's nice. That's a good find there. And the Super Boost Energy. Haven't seen too much of that, in all honesty. I guess I could maybe see it in a Gardevoir deck. You get 3 Gardevoirs, but I mean, if you have 3 on the board, I think you're kind of just winning. I don't know that you really need the Super Boost Energy, and if you aren't able to get 3 out, maybe you only have 1, then it's just not relevant. So I don't know that the Super Boost Energy would be terribly useful, especially in Gardevoir. I mean, the idea of having 4 energy on Gardevoir is fantastic. Pretty efficient, but again, I think you're pretty much winning the game or are in a very, very good position if you have 3 of them out already. So, but who knows? And got a Palpad. Okay. And there's that other Piplup, which with a pretty cool attack, but that's 60 HP. Just makes it vulnerable, unfortunately. especially with Buzzwole running around. Although we'll see if it's as prominent in the coming weeks, and if people start using more of the Ultra Prism cards, that kind of thing. Haven't seen any Mars at all on my online playing. Maybe, no, not even once. So that's interesting. I could maybe see it, I guess, in stall decks or wall mill, that type of thing. And haven't played it myself, but okay, coming up on the second to last pack. Let's see. And there's the new Lily art. Really like this card, even maybe as a one of, you know, just to kind of get that 8 cards on the first turn as an alternate draw supporter. Okay, and we are on to the last pack for this box opening, and let's see if we get anything cool. Okay, starts off with the Passimian, the one with the ability. It's, again, the damage that this thing can throw out if it's fully set up is pretty cool. Okay, and the Magmortar. Don't know much about this card. Seems kind of cool, I guess. If this Pokemon is your active Pokemon and is damaged by opponent's attack, Pokemon is now burned. Okay. Maybe some fire, burn, sort of Infernape Magmortar shenanigans. Not sure about that one. Seems like a lot to ask for all at once. I mean, if under ideal conditions, and that was kind of a similar idea to that Entei Infernape deck that I mentioned earlier. It just really seemed like everything had to go so well for you. You needed the right cards right away. You had to find everything you needed, and you know, without that consistency, that's a tall order. So who knows, maybe some fire shenanigans down the line, but I don't know. I really don't see it, but that's it for that box. So this is what we finish up with. Not too bad, and got some of the relevant cards up here as well. The Cynthia, the Orangaroo with the resource management, and the Weavile with Evil Admonition, which is a really cool attack and quite relevant now, which we saw in the recent tournaments like Collinsville. So a full art looker, really, really nice card. Very happy to find that. And the one right in the middle of that glare there is the Lunala Prism, Dialga GX, the regular art, Solgaleo Prism, which is such a nice card and a really good one to boot. Sylvali GX, Super Boost Energy Prism, Palkia GX, and the full art Rainbow Duskmane Necrozma. Awesome find. Very happy about that one. So that's it. I do have another box that I want to do a separate video for, and you know, stay in touch with that. And but you know, not too bad so far. So be sure to check out the channel. Elevateyourcraft.net is the website. YouTube, I am Elevateyourcraft, all one word, and the same on Facebook. So the Pokemon thing I do along with the calisthenics and jump rope. That's my main thing. That's what I specialize in. But you can't always be exercising. Can't always be thinking about those kinds of things. And I also play Pokemon TCG for a lot of fun and play it also competitively, which is really cool. I like that competition. I like the theory crafting. I just really like taking it a little more seriously. So always looking for the competitive decks, what's in the meta, that kind of thing. But that's it for this box opening. Stay tuned for another, which I'm sure I'll be doing shortly. But until next time, I will talk to you guys later.